Murdoch and Gordon. Hey Bill, has that goods come in yet? No, Ben, still waiting. Oh bloody hell. What's taking so long? It's overdue by a whole 30 minutes. It was late evening at Wellsworth, and Bill and Ben were fuming. They'd been helping to shunt the yard, and were eager to return to the clay pits before nightfall. A delayed stopping goods, however, was thwarting their hopes. Ben was just about to continue his rant when a great booming whistle sounded in the distance. I think that's our man. Well, it had better be. Sure enough, a few moments later, a huge 9F rumbled into view, with a lengthy consist trailing behind him. With an almighty cacophony of noise, the Titan brought his train to a stop at the station platform. He spied the twins waiting in the sidings. Oi, you two. Are you gonna get your trucks off my train or what? Aye, mate, responded Ben. Quick, Bill, get our stuff, will you? Me? Why me? Why can't you do it yourself? Because you're closer. Now come along, man, up to it. Bill muttered crossly under his breath before setting to work. Ben, for his part, was cross too. What took you so long? He demanded of the 9F. Did some sheep best you again? An indignant hiss followed this. Was that supposed to be a joke? Would I be frowning if it was? The 9F glowered at the little tank engine. There was a points failure on the other railway. It was out of my control. Pah! My bunker? Honestly, Murdoch. You might have that big snazzy headlamp to light your way, but we don't. How'd you think we feel having to trudge through the dark in the countryside, eh? It's no wonder Gordon thinks you're full of sludge. Murdoch groaned, not just at Ben's rudeness, but also for the truth in his last observation. It was no secret that the Northwestern's premier express locomotive thought lowly of the railway's new heavy goods engine. The proud Pacific voiced as much that night in the sheds. You know, gentlemen, one might be able to forgive lateness by a minute or two, but a whole half hour, Then he knows something is seriously inadequate. Oh, not this again.
Leave him alone, Gordon,
said Henry.
There's no need to be rude.
Hear, hear, agreed Arthur. Huh, Murdoch scoffed. It takes one to know one, doesn't it, you galloping blue sausage? Gordon harumphed loudly. Hark at the moving cranberry. Honestly, maroon is such a hideous livery. The miscreants that ran the LMS barely sufficed any dignity to it. Never mind a lowly standard class such as yourself. Aye, piped in a voice. I'll have you now. Red of any kind beats blue 24/7. Oh, be quiet, little James. What do you know of these matters? Now then, Gordon continued. I'm not one to criticize, but in my day, young engines knew how to respect their betters. Murdoch rolled his eyes. Respect should be earned, not demanded. Huh. Trust the high horse to lose the plot. Pshaw! Lose the plot indeed. What have you ever earned in your life, eh? My name, for one. The 9F wheezed angrily. I worked for it. I waited to be given it. But I wouldn't expect a pedantic fool like you to understand anything about that. Pah! Well, you're right. I wouldn't. Locomotives of station like myself deserve our names by right. I didn't know what half-wit thought of a ruffian like you deserves one at all. Gordon! Everyone looked to see Edward back into the shed. Really? How could you say something like that? He then turned to Murdoch. I do apologize. This isn't... Edward stopped short. The 9F had slunk silently to the back of his road. There was a long silence. Everyone turned to Gordon with a hard look. The blue Pacific stared blankly. He hadn't meant to strike a tender chord. As Murdoch drifted sadly to sleep, he failed to notice Gordon looking remorsefully down at his buffers. Early the next morning, Murdoch and Arthur were at the coaling stage getting topped up. The 9F hadn't spoken a word since the previous night's row. Are you alright back there, mate? Oh, aye. Thanks, Arth. In truth, this was far from the case. Murdoch kept thinking about what Gordon had said. That tosser. What right had he to talk of things he knew nothing about? Why, if Ginty were here, he'd show that northeastern prick what for. Then again, Ginty wasn't here. As armed as he'd become, Murdoch couldn't shake the feeling that, perhaps, he'd also overstepped his margin. He knew a certain old ten-wheeler would not have approved of his behaviour. At that moment, a familiar whistle caught his attention. The stoic 9F took a deep breath. He had to face the music. Good morning, greeted Gordon. Morning. Is there something we can do for you? Arthur asked tartly. Yes, actually. I'd like to have a private word with Murdoch, if you please. The 2MT looked suspiciously at the bigger engine. It's alright, Arth, the 9F said to him. I'll be fine. Arthur was no less wary, but eventually gave in and obliged by moving off. So, Gordon said, lovely morning, eh? Aye, lovely. There was an awkward silence. Look, Murdoch finally said, about last night, I should probably... Gordon interrupted. About last night, I would like to offer you my apologies. Murdoch blinked. What? Gordon sighed sadly. I need to right my wrongdoings. My conduct and words last night were disgraceful. My treatment of you in general has been disgraceful. It is unbecoming of a mainline engine to turn his nose down to a colleague, as I have to you, and I humbly beg your pardon. I shall do my utmost to do better moving forward. The 9F was stunned. He hadn't expected this. Thank you. I'm sorry too. My good fellow, what for? You were well within your rights to call me out on my behaviour. Gordon paused. If I might be allowed to ask, pray, how did you earn your name? Murdoch considered a moment, recollecting the tale. I helped stop the runaway once. It was back when I banked at the Lucky Incline. Half a train broke away from the rest of its consist on the hill. As they were coming back down, the breakaways were diverted to my line, and it was up to me to stop them. I managed to do it, thankfully. My front was a wee bit damaged, and I was sore for a while afterwards, but no one else was hurt. That was the important thing. However, the engine heading the train was impressed with my save. Thought the name Murdoch would suit me. It means warrior. And else since that day, it's kinda stuck with me. Gordon was amazed. Indeed. Well, that's certainly a story to be proud of. It's better than mine at any rate. Murdoch raised an eyebrow. Oh? What's yours? Gordon smiled ruefully. When I was built, myself and my siblings were the fastest locomotives in the world. Suffice to say, we were quite the buzz at the time. The old GNR thought that Golden Bennett would be a fitting title for me. At this, Murdoch burst out laughing. Indeed, he couldn't help but think it was quite funny. Gordon laughed too, in spite of himself. "Ha ha! Here, lad," he said at last. "I'm due out with the express in a few minutes, but I hope we can continue our conversation tonight." "Yeah, sure thing." "Excellent. I look forward to chatting with you then, dear boy." "Aye, likewise." Then, with a grand air, Gordon made his way to the station. Murdoch smiled. That definitely went better than he had hoped. The 9F was still in a good mood as he made his way down the main line. His train in tow was yet another heavy freight bound for Barrow-in-Furness. He was nearing Wellsworth when he caught sight of a man waving a red flag on the platform. "Hey up, what's this?" The station master explained as he brought his train to a halt. "Gordon stalled on the hill. He's blocking the line, and the express is stuck. Do you think you can give him a push?" The 9F looked doubtful. "Oh, Murdoch doesn't have to do that, sir," Ben called. He and Bill were shunting the yard again. "Us two can take his place for him. It'll be a real challenge for him to do a job right." The two tank engines guffawed. Murdoch scowled before turning back to the station master. "Aye, sir. I think I can." Golden was waiting patiently at the foot of the hill when a booming whistle sounded behind him. "Well, well, well. Looks like our next meeting came about sooner than tonight, eh?" called Murdoch. "I suppose so." Golden forced a grimace. "I don't suppose you could spare me further humiliation, could you?" I don't know. It's rather tempting to leave you as is." "Ah, well. The passengers have been inconvenienced long enough. You mustn't keep them waiting." "Indeed." Just then, Gordon noticed something. I say, wouldn't it be a good idea to uncouple your train?" Should be fine. Saves time this way. As long as you pull your weight up there, it shouldn't be a problem. Are you ready?" "Yes, I am." "Right, let's do this." With no small amount of gusto, Murdoch forced the express and its goods into motion. It was a grueling bank. The hill wasn't as long as the Licky, but it was certainly just as steep. This, combined with shifting the weight of the two heavy trains, proved extremely difficult. Great plumes of exhaust rocketed into the air. The noise was extraordinary. As Murdoch ascended the gradient, he was no longer on that hill, but back at the Licky once more. He could feel Bertha's might spurring him on, and on, and on. Before he knew it, in no time at all, we've made it to the top. Murdoch snapped back to the present. Sure enough, the express had crested the hill, was running down the other side. Golden gave a hearty thanks on his whistle before charging off into the distance. The 9F smiled. It had been exhilarating to bank a train again. As he coasted down with his goods, he couldn't help but feeling a twinge of sadness. For one brief shining moment, he had been young 92079 all over again.